This is SBS World News with Janice Peterson.
Good evening. Outbursts of violence and looting are hampering rescue efforts in earthquake-ravaged Türkiye. A number of international aid organisations have suspended operations until their safety is guaranteed. It's yet another setback as survivors grow increasingly frustrated about how long it's taking to find those buried beneath buildings. More than 28,000 people have now been confirmed dead across Türkiye and Syria. And the UN says it expects that figure to at least double. And a warning that our coverage contains distressing content.
We came to help you, he cries out. If you can hear me, give us a sign. The rescuers wait for a response, but nothing comes. In the unrecognisable ruins of a place they once called home, survivors wait and silently pray for miracles. But as the body count increases, miracles are hard to come by. The rescue operation is now in its 6th day, and many say it's taking far too long. Hope is giving way to despair. This man says no one's come to help find his children. He wants the world to know their names.
Mustafa, Mohammed, Zeynep, Mürvet.
It's only from above that you get a full sense of the scale of the devastation. Here in the historic city of Antakya, buildings that have stood for centuries came crashing down in seconds. Monday's earthquake was so powerful, it carved a huge crater right through the middle of this olive grove. The man charged with leading the United Nations aid response says more than 100 countries have come to help, but more must be done.
What happened here on Monday, the epicenter of the earthquake, was the worst event in 100 years in this region.
Security is becoming an issue for international aid groups. Looting and gun violence has prompted at least 2 German charities to suspend rescue efforts.
Einige Teams arbeiten noch unter Schutz, weil sie noch Baustellen hatten. Andere Teams haben die Arbeiten eingestellt.
Even without the threat of violence, this is dangerous work. Despite the mountain of cascading debris, somehow these rescuers weren't badly hurt. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, greeting survivors, has promised the effort to rebuild will begin within weeks. The demolition of some dwellings has already begun. Turkish authorities have detained 12 people and issued more than 100 arrest warrants over concerns about poor building safety prior to the earthquake. Those taken into custody include contractors. It's unclear if local authorities who approved substandard developments will also be held to account.
The bureaucracy and the entire chain of bureaucratic procedures and people who are responsible to actually put their signatures on certain papers are also co-conspirators.
Across the border, the head of the World Health Organization was clearly affected by what he saw in the Syrian city of Aleppo.
It's heartbreaking, the damage and the impact on the people.
In rebel-held areas where international aid is in desperately short supply, they feel forgotten by the outside world. This man cradles his 4-year-old son, one of the many here who didn't survive.
هاي بتركيا اجاهم كل شيء في مساعدات جسر جوي اجاهم مشان نشيلوا العنبر نحن ما حدا اجى احكي له انه في ناس هذا الطفل ايش ذنبه هذا يضل 4 ايام تحت التراب لنلاقيه.
But even with the odds stacked against them, rescue crews continue to do what they can with what they have. A baby's cry, enough to inspire hope. It's moments like these that keep them going. Ben Terry, SBS World News.
Joining us now from Adana in southern Türkiye is our reporter Claudia Farhat. Good evening, Claudia. As we've just seen in devastating detail, this disaster has destroyed thousands of buildings and it's left a lot of people in the region you're in homeless. So what's being done to provide shelter and what does the future hold for these people?
Well, Janice, the future really still is very uncertain. The government is gradually setting up evacuation centres like this one right across the disaster zone. We spent the day yesterday meeting the evacuees here, many of them families with very small children, and most of them were at pains to say they are grateful for the help they are getting. There are hot meals that are being handed out, people have donated warm clothing for them, and there's even activities to keep their children distracted. But there's a lot lacking too. Portable bathrooms have been set up. Some of the women we spoke to yesterday said they haven't had a shower in 5 days now because there's very little privacy in them and they just don't feel comfortable using them. We've seen families of 6 people all crammed inside one small tent. There's no heating, so when temperatures dip below zero overnight, people only have small campfires to keep them warm. And a lot of the people now living here came with just the clothes on their back when they escaped the earthquake. Some people who escaped from buildings that were only minor damage say they've been allowed home for a few minutes just to pick up a few supplies. But the people who have come from the most devastated areas of the city and whose buildings sustained the most damage say their homes are now cordoned off with yellow tape and they haven't been allowed to even get close to them. Those are the people who are likely never going to be able to return home again, and some of them say they still don't have a plan for where they're going to go next. Some are looking into travelling further north to stay with family, but others say they don't want to leave this city because it is the only place that they have family. In this city, twice shaken by disasters of a lifetime, somehow life goes on.
İyi, eğleniyoruz.
Ben kaleciyim.
All around this tent village, parents like Jevhash are trying to make sense of the senseless for their children.
Kızımızın durumu iyi, her şeyi oyun zannediyor şu anda. İnsanlar kamp kuruyor, çadıra gelmiş, eğleniyor. Çünkü dedesini, anneannesini, büyük babasını burada gördüğü için bütün sülalesini bir bayram havası zannediyor.
The government has brought in psychologists and social workers. Today they're colouring with children aged 6 and under.
Tabii ki çocuklarımızı çok olumsuz etkiledi. Çocuklarımızın tamamında bir korku, bir endişe, bir stres var. Bu çocuklarımızı ondan uzaklaştırmaya yönelik yaptığımız çalışmalar.
6-year-old Duru wants to show us a picture she's drawn.
Güneş,
Kendi evim, o sensin Duru.
çocuk, bunu 2 tane bulut, evin bacası ve çimenler.
It's her home before the earthquake destroyed it.
Destek olmaya çalışıyoruz anne baba olarak özellikle. Ama pek yani sağ olsun buradaki gönüllü ablalar, arkadaşlar psikoloji destek veriyorlar.
It's not just the children who need distracting. Tuba is showing these women how to weave.
Burada yapılan birçok ürünümüz kadınlar tarafından burada bulunan kadınların açtığı pazarlar var. El sanatları pazarları. Orada satıp aile ekonomisine katkı sağlıyorlar.
Facing an indefinite period of recovery, they might need it. A lot of people here are still hoping they'll eventually be able to return to their homes once engineers have swept through and assessed them for safety. But the reality is that so many of them have been so severely damaged that no one will ever be able to live in them again. Those who can't go home will stay here until shelters made out of shipping containers arrive. In the meantime, evacuees like Adana, who escaped falling debris, have little to do but pray.
Herkes bir daha olacak mı? Herkes bir daha olacak mı? Bir daha olursa kaç şiddetinde olacak? Ne zaman olacak? Bir de hep söyleniyor böyle bizde hurafe derler. Herkesin ağzından bir şey çıkıyor. Yok 8 nokta olacak diyorlar. Yok 7 nokta olacak. Yok işte ayın 13'ünde bir daha olacak.
Some people are just trying to survive the day. Sharifah's building is now so structurally unsafe, she's not allowed back in, even for a moment.
İlaçları vardı 11 tane. 4 tanesini temin ettiler. Bir tane eksik kaldı şu an için. İlaçlarla yaşıyor.
Her family of 6 and their cat now sleeping in one tent.
Kaldıramıyoruz. 4 kişi tutuyoruz. Çadırdan yardıma geliyor. Ağır gövde ya, kalkamıyor. Yerde yatınca kalkamıyor. Kaldırıyoruz mecburen kollarından böyle tutup.
Still, she, like most people here, is at pains to say she's grateful for the life she still gets to live, as the number of people who don't continues its climb. In Adana, Claudia Farhat, SBS World News.